Thank you very much for having me here. I'm sorry I have to speak in English. I do not speak Malayalam. I can speak a little bit of Tamil, which will not be of so much use though. ನಾನು 3 ವರ್ಷ ಕಾಲೇಜ್ படிச்சிச்சு மெட்ராஸ், அது சென்னை. ஆனால் தான் கொஞ்சம் தமிழ் பேசுகிறீங்க, கொஞ்சம் எழுதி கொஞ்சம் தெரியும். So anyway, Mr. Sadevan, who is a friend of a friend, asked me to come and speak here in a youth conference of social, political change makers. Although we come from completely 2 different backgrounds, I felt a connection of the positive willingness to be the change maker and in the process face all challenges. That for me is a connecting point where I felt perhaps I could also meet and get inspired by change makers here in Kuttipuram, Kerala. That's why I accepted the invitation and came here. I arrived this morning. It's a long journey for me from Dharamshala, Himachal Pradesh, from there to Delhi and then to Bangalore, and then take a bus ride and come here this morning. I was stopped at the highway on the roadside. It's called a bypass. I stopped there and then I made my way here. Our friend Shini and Prajul actually told me that the food that had been being prepared here have been grown by your own with your effort to cultivate a piece of land. And that I thought was deep commitment young people are showing in being the change that they are trying to make. And such commitments are very rare around the world. My name is Tsunde. I'm a Tibetan, born and brought up in India. Because I come from a Tibetan refugee family. My parents came from Tibet after Chinese invasion of Tibet in the 1959 and 60. And I was born in India in 1970s when my parents were road construction laborers. They were doing coolie work in Himachal. And I was born on a roadside camp, on the roadside. And from there on, I was taken to a refugee camp. And mostly, I grew up in a refugee camp in India. Perhaps many of you are not aware of such stories of Tibetan refugees, because Kerala is very far away from not only Tibet, even from Himachal Pradesh. And when I used to go to college in Chennai, about 15 years back, because my parents now live in Karnataka, and when I was asked a very simple question, where are you from? I could not say I'm from Karnataka, carrying the face that I have. And in Chennai, if somebody comes with this kind of face, they would say Chinese or Nepalese. And if I had to say like I come from Karnataka, nobody will believe me. But my parents actually today live in a refugee camp in Karnataka. My mother actually speaks very good Kannada. This is a diverse background that we all come from. But as the previous speaker was talking about globalization, this is an issue that is binding all of us together in this, and we have to be concerned. Youth, unlike the elders, have a unique sense of discrimination. Youth do not come with a baggage of traditional bondage, enmity, and the history of political historical backlogs Youth come with a fresh mind, with a fresh approach. Youth has a power to discriminate truth from facts and do not have to be bogged down by the cultural backgrounds that usually the elders carry. And that is the unique power the youth must make use of in their struggle for change. And in a social political change, the positive change that we look for mostly and should be started within your own life. I, as an activist, I made a promise when I was a child, when I was in 5th standard. I realized that I do not come from the country I'm born into. I realized that I'm a refugee. I realized that one day we will have to go back to our own country. And that is the first education I received as a child growing up in a Tibetan refugee school. And it was shattering to realize that you have nothing in the country you are born into, that you do not belong here. But that awakening of the mind matured me from the child to a willing activist. I made a promise at the time that when I grow up, I will be a freedom fighter. Today, we may be fighting for freedom of our country. The mode of change that we are seeking is same as an environment activist working in Kerala, or social reforms that people are making in UP and Bihar, or the issues of Narmada, or people also fighting for land rights in Chhattisgarh. It's the same spirit of the youth. The spirit that says that I will fight for truth, and in the process of the struggle, I will maintain my integrity. And once we maintain that sense of integrity, there is no power that can overcome you. There is no power that you are fear of. In fact, the fierce integrity that you maintain, I have found in my own experiments in life as an activist, that people fear you, not because you have money, not because you have education, not because you have physical strength. People fear you because you are fiercely integral and truthful. This is the truthfulness with which you gain a sense of fearlessness, that you do not fear people with money, you do not fear people with power. You in fact take pity of them and think that how deeply they are corrupted with the arrogance of power, with the greed of money. You actually feel pity of them and you do not admire them. You admire somebody who maintains that struggle for truthfulness, and somebody, even in the worst challenges of time, can maintain that sense of patience. This I have found in my struggle as an activist. I've been to a number of jails, almost about 12 different jails in India. Some of my friends actually make fun of me and saying that you should write a jail guide in India. It has started from my desire to go and see Tibet for myself. So after my BA degree from Madras, I went to Tibet. I went across Tibet. My plan didn't work. My idea was to go to Tibet and work from there. So I got arrested, I was beaten, I was thrown into jail, I was interrogated every day and told that I will either be shot to death or would rot in prison forever. But I did not give up. I maintained a sense of hope that I have to maintain my sense of peace here. that my freedom is the maintenance of that sense of calm and peace in my own mind, that I'm not captured by the jailers. In fact, the jailers were more worried about their sense of duty than I was being a prisoner. And this is the youth power that I was talking about. This is the youth power that gives you a power that cannot get you bought with the promise of money or be silenced with fear. That cannot be bought by the promise of money or be silenced with fear. And this is the power that we are all seeking as youth change makers. The consumerism that is spreading around the world, making everybody obedient consumers. Blind, obedient consumers is what globalization is constantly seeking. Whether it's in Kerala or Nepal or Tibet or China, South America, Canada, Japan, everywhere, the Coca-Cola or the Pepsi tastes just the same. That same taste has been engineered by the best scientists. Such a formula that can immediately satisfy a unique physical pleasure in yourself. Such engineering of satisfaction of human physical pleasure has been engineered, and this chemical has been spread all around the world. And this actually attacks the human beings from a very, very weak point, the point of physical satisfaction. And this physical satisfaction is not once. The human beings need a constant satisfaction of the physical pleasure. And that's why Coca-Cola and the Pepsi are consumed not once, but again and again and again and again, so much that today they have built the Coca-Cola empire and the Pepsi-Cola empires. And these are just an example. Around the world, in the world of cinema, in the world of music, in the whole world of pleasure-seeking world, so much of products have been created that today young people are keeping earphones plugged in their ears and walk in the street, and many times there are accidents happening because they have ears plugged, do not hear the vehicles behind them, in front of them. Such is the way consumerism is capturing people. The constant satisfaction of the physical world. And therefore, people who are little more aware, conscious, and careful are the ones that I recognize as change makers, because we see the world from outside. And therefore, around the world, consumerism has crossed all borders of countries, languages, nations, tribes, castes, classes. It's no longer the rich and the poor. The border today is, are you a blind consumerist or are you not? Are you outside who are more conscious, who are more aware? And therefore we are constantly watching, where are we going? I believe in the richness and novelty of science and development. I believe in the power of creativity. I'm all for arts and development, but consumerism makes people blind There can neither be scientific developments, nor can there be artistic satisfactions, nor can there be creative world possible when people are made blind, obedient consumers. And this is what globalization is spreading all across the world. One of the worst cases of globalization today is unfortunately attacking my country, Tibet. India today celebrates itself as a post-colonial country. Many of the African countries and South American countries who were under former colonial powers today say that they are in the post-colonial era. But the empire building has not stopped. The British Empire, which used to control 2/3 of the world, today is again investing in China. And also the United States, the Canada, the European Union nations, the Australia, everybody is investing in China, where the cheapest production units are functioning. The industries of the world are today there in China, where the cheap mode of production creates such humongous production in the world by using slave labors of China and the natural resources drawn from occupied countries like Tibet, East Turkestan, Mongolia. And by using natural resources from these occupied countries and enslavement of millions and millions of Chinese workers, today the cheap made in China products are possible. What is considered as the largest Chinese economy is actually nothing Chinese about it. It is mainly the investments of the Western European countries, and therefore the colonial era has not come to an end, it has just shifted base. Today it's based in China, and China today it's spreading its empires beyond the Chinese empire and is going to Africa, it's going to South America. Many of African countries' railway projects, dam building, road constructions, building stadiums are being made by Chinese companies. Again, these have nothing to do with Chinese people. This has everything to do with Chinese dictators who are supported by Western corporate companies. This is the nexus between that. Unfortunately, the leftists in India even today think that China is communism, that Chinese are socialists. This is completely wrong. I have to say to the Indian leftists, where are you? Hello. You are so stuck with the 1960s idea of China as a communist country. China is much worse capitalistic than even United States. At least in the United States, there is rule of law. People are accountable to rule of law and they have to answer those questions. In China, there is no law that protects its environment, that protects its people. And therefore, in the production of cheap made in China products, how many Chinese people, workers, have to die? And how much of rivers have been polluted? So much of river pollution that today people, scientists are saying that there is not a single river in China which can be drunk from the riverbed. Where there are a number of cases of public protests, where there is a rampant shooting, people being killed or jailed, leaders are arrested and thrown into prison. When there is no journalists coming over there to see what is happening and there is no coverage of that, people feel there's no way to spread the voice. So they have come out with a very unique way of resisting. Tibetans today in Tibet, to fight against the spread of Chinese language as a form of media,
Tibetans today are singing songs. All the Tibetans are singing songs today, but songs only in Tibetan. Tibetans are wearing dress, but only Tibetan dress. Only Tibetans can make Tibetan dress. So Tibetan tailors get more jobs. Tibetan wool or yarning and making Tibetan clothing are enhanced. Tibetan eat only from Tibetan shops, Tibetan restaurants. Tibetan eat Tibetan food, not Chinese food. Tibetans speak Tibetan, pure Tibetan language. What has been earlier seen as fashionable speaking Tibetan with Chinese words inserted, today Tibetans realize that there is reclamation of our culture. And when you are culturally empowered, you are strong. And in a country which is completely overtaken by Chinese military administration and various other colonial structures, today Tibetans are resisting. This is called Thakar movement, or is called the White Wednesday. Every Wednesday, Tibetans come out into the street dressed in colorful Tibetan dress and sing Tibetan songs. Chinese government cannot do anything to them, but this unites people together. There is a sense of pride in your culture, your identity, your language, your song, your proverbs, and your dance, your clothing, about your father, about your mother, about the songs and games traditionally Tibetans are so proud of. This is a unique resistance Tibetans are creating today. But mind you, our brothers and sisters in Tibet, they have never heard of Gandhi. They have never been educated about the non-violent struggle led by Gandhi or Martin Luther King or Nelson Mandela. Nobody. They have never heard about this. These are the common people, nomads, farmers, monks, nuns, Tibetan traders. This is not happening because of education or workshop or training camps. This is started out of necessity. The necessity to survive as a people. So today, when a common Tibetan walks into a Tibetan restaurant and asks for mian theo, which is a Chinese word for noodle, the Tibetan who is working in the restaurant will not serve you the food. Unless you speak Tibetan language and ask for the food, you will not be served. So such is the power of cultural resistance, a very unique power against all the Chinese guns and money. Now the Chinese government is at lost, do not know what to do. They cannot arrest a Tibetan singing Tibetan song. So in this process, the globalization which is spreading around the world today is finding a new enemy in Tibet. And for us, this is our non-violent struggle for freedom. And lastly, I'll conclude here. In India, we are 150,000 Tibetans living as refugees. We have been here in India for the past 53 years, and Tibetans are grateful to the government and people of India. We have received not only shelter to live as refugees, we have also been given the freedom to study and to move. And somebody like me with Indian education, today I have grown up as a freedom fighter, but believing only in the power of non-violence. And I've seen somebody, because I'm born and brought up in India, every time youth come out in the street and protest, I've seen number of cases of violence. It is important to resist, but the method of non-violence must be practiced. If we are seeking truth, the path must also be that of non-violence. The path must also be truthful. You cannot fight corruption when you are corrupted, both what you are seeking and the method of that path of seeking should be truthful. And in that, one must have the belief that this is a change we are seeking, and this is the method with which I'm seeking the change. And with that, I find a sense of brotherhood, sisterhood with number of change makers. And this is the way I'm bonding with number of change makers that I come and sit here. And I'll be interacting with number of you tomorrow and day after. And towards the end, I want to apologize speaking in front of so many elders who have so much of experience and knowledge that I feel that I'm kind of speaking so much. So I will now end here, and somebody will do the translation in Malayalam, and I'll end my speech here. And once again, thank you very much for having me here, and it's an honor for me to be engaging with so many change makers, young change makers, and also seek advice from the elders. Thank you very much. Thank you.